Welcome to the Foul Play YouTube channel. Hey, well, hello everybody. We haven't had a TTT in a long time, but given the recent briefing by Kathleen Zellner of the state, really felt it was time to do another one. This is probably the most momentous thing that we've had happen in the case in a long time, because we're on the precipice of a real decision here. So I figured it was really important to be able to talk about it. I'm joined with a whole bunch of the usual researchers here, the Foul Play channel. Alan, 1986, Allie Nicole, BB, Columbo, Dark Side of the Moon, Jack 61, Linda K, Susan, Wizard, Zoe, and Sammy. Well, hello everybody. Have you guys all had a chance to read the brief? I know Susan did an excellent reading of the brief, and we have a Powder Puff podcast coming that by the time that this airs, you guys would have already had the chance to see on Tuesday. But if you didn't catch it, please go back and watch that because it's just more in-depth and fascinating discussion on the case. I did a read of the case myself, a little bit different than Susan did. Susan read it all the way through. Susan's reading is excellent. She's a much better reader than I am, so you should listen to her. But we interjected along the way of the briefing, and we were fortunate enough to have Travis Williamson with us to be able to explain some things, and hopefully I can carry some of that knowledge into this podcast because it's all critically important. Just right off the top, what did you guys all think of the brief? Anybody have some initial comments? And we also joined by Just a Jenny. Jack, go ahead.
Roasted.
Yes, roasted. Absolutely. Alan, you have a comment too?
On fire.
On fire. Linda.
Estapo.
Word of the day.
Wizard.
I would have loved to have heard Kathleen Zellner reading her own brief in front of a big panel like the kind of Academy Awards, where they're all taking a bit of fun out of people and kind of, I would have loved to have seen her doing it in a Don Rickles voice, Don Rickles style, yeah.
Oh, yeah. That would be great. I totally agree
Richard
with that.
Pryor,
awesome. Yep, love it. BV.
I loved it. I felt that she was like the law professor and was treating them like pre-law students. Even made them
definitely.
charts to point out where they went wrong. I wonder if her extension of words were to cover the charts that she made for them.
That's a good point. They may have been. I definitely think there was some strategy involved in the order that she presented stuff. Susan.
Clean, simple, concise, and the charts were like the case for dummies.
Oh yeah, definitely so. Alan. I'm gonna assume that he didn't mute himself back up. Now, I kind of wonder if Josh Call has had the chance to read this yet, and if he harkened back to when Mommy Dearest was bouncing him on his knee and saying, Josh, someday you'll be able to cover up for the crimes of Manitowoc County just like me. If he's actually in tears now because, Mommy, I let you down. I wasn't able to cover up the crimes and sweep them under the rug like you. That's what I think. You got another comment for us, Jack?
I don't know if I should do the Joe Exotic voice or not.
Go ahead.
Do it.
Yes. We got Josh over here in the corner. He's crying pretty bad. So y'all just back off. Just back the fuck off.
That was well worth it.
Playing for it right now. He's got his tent set up in the corner too. So let's give him a little time to get off the ledge, guys. Come on.
That is just beautiful. Just beautiful. Anybody else have a preliminary comment? This is great. Zoe.
It just made absolute clarity to the mess that we got from the state.
Oh, absolutely. absolutely. Thank you, Sammy. Zoe?
I'm so proud. This was the first brief I actually understood.
Yeah.
Because the chart made it understandable even for me, for a dummy who doesn't understand the legal language. So I felt really good that finally there was a brief that me also could understand. So there's no doubt Wisconsin understands it too.
Yeah, I work in a very technical field, and a lot of times what we say about the most brilliant of the technical people are the ones that are able to take extremely difficult and complicated legal technical concepts and are able to articulate them to the layman, like the people on this call right now,
Yes.
in ways that are completely understandable. So I really think in a lot of ways that is a function of two things. One is Kathleen Zellner's brilliance and her ability to articulate as a lawyer, and number two, the clarity of Stephen's innocence. I think both of those things are in play in that simplicity that we're all finding.
I agree.
Yeah. So thank you for that comment. So let's move. Oh, Allie, let's hear a comment from you.
She blew my mind. I absolutely loved it, and it was simple. Cause I'm kind of like Zoe. I'm a dummy, and I don't really understand it. But she blew my mind, and it was amazing. And I can't wait to see what the state's response is to her. So
yeah, well, the good news is, Allie, that the state doesn't get a chance to respond to that. It's in the hands of the judges now. I can't wait to see what the judge responds to that. It's a 3-judge panel, which I didn't know. Thanks again, Travis, for pointing that out to me. 3-judge panel gets to review this, and according to Travis, he expects, based on similar cases, that we might even see a response as soon as 2 or 3 months. So that's really exciting. So I can't wait for that. So let's move on.
And wait a minute, you young ladies, instead of calling yourselves stupid or not intelligent, why don't you just say that you're not familiar with legalese?
That's right. Nobody's stupid around here.
Can I for a second? Just to
go
say
ahead,
hi. Just to say hi to Denny, who just joined, so we can recognize he's here.
Justin Denny. Hey, Justin, how are you?
Good. How are you guys?
All right, doing great. Glad you could join us.
I did have a quick comment about the brief. With her, to me, I feel like her argument with the fact that she was working with Fallon back when to do retesting and stuff, and now bringing it up in this brief, in my mind, it's like she was setting a trap back then, and now the trap is ready to snap. So.
Oh yeah, I think it has snapped. I know, that's brilliant. We're gonna talk about that, and feel free to chime in again when we get to that in the slides, because I think that's first up.
Sounds good.
So all right, excellent. So let's move. Let's talk about slide 1. We know that Kathleen filed for brief on Thursday. That was the 25th, 27th. I forget what the date was. She specifically addresses those things, and she was limited to addressing those things that the state responded to with regard to the brief that she submitted way back in October. So let's move on to slide 2. And I thought it would be interesting. I mean, we've had a whole bunch of people do readings, and just like a book, everybody starts at the beginning. So I thought it'd be interesting to start at the end, just for the heck of it. And really quickly reading the conclusion. It's a very short conclusion that she has in her in her brief, and I'll read it real quick. For the reasons stated herein, Stephen Avery respectfully requests that this court grant him one of the following alternative remedies. Option number 1: reverse the orders denying post-conviction relief and remand for the state to file a response to the motion for post-conviction relief and order additional scientific testing per the September 18, 2017 agreement, and or grant an evidentiary hearing. Or option number 2, reverse the judgments of conviction and orders denying post-conviction relief and remand a new trial. So that was a lot of words. And if you're able to see this, the slides on YouTube, the key words there for the first option are additional scientific testing and or an evidentiary hearing. So and of course she'd love a new trial. She's not going to get a new trial out of this. We know that, but nothing's going to stop her for asking for that. So really, when you read this brief, what you really have to understand is that what she's asking for, what she'd really love to have, is an evidentiary hearing. She'll settle for more scientific testing because she believes that more scientific testing, if she can actually get her hands on the RAV, then she'll be able to uncover more information. So she's not asking for Stephen Avery to get exonerated. And this as a result of this particular briefing, there's a process that she has to go. She has to get her new trial eventually, but she believes the roadmap to that is perhaps first scientific testing, followed by evidentiary hearing. The evidentiary hearing, there's enough evidence to start a new trial. So that's kind of Stephen's roadmap. We're a ways away from that yet, but this is a major milestone if she actually gets that that evidentiary hearing. So is anybody have any comments on that roadmap? So when we view the brief through that lens, does that make sense to everybody?
Does to me.
Perfectly said.
Awesome.
I like
Awesome.
that. I like the idea of going backwards too. It's a whole different thought process, and I like it.
Yeah.
Awesome. So let's move on to slide 3. Okay. Let's talk about the two main arguments. Not where she employs them, but what are our two main arguments. And it's not the only two she uses, but two important ones that she uses as she seeks to deflect the state's criticisms of her October brief. The first one, Linda, what's that word on that slide?
Gestapo.
Gestapo. It somehow it rhymes with Gestapo. I don't know.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that on a subsequent slide. But at the end of the day, what it means is it's to prevent the state, as you can see from the slide, or to prevent any party in a legal argument from playing fast and loose. In other words, you can't assert one thing in one trial and then in the same overall activity assert something completely different. And that's exactly what Justin Denny was talking about a minute ago with regard to having this agreement for testing, and we'll get into that a little bit, I think, on the next slide. So this concept of judicial estoppel was something I'd never heard of, and I also agree with Justin that she didn't even bring that up until this third brief, and I thought that was great. So she's arguing that. Based on one way to put it is she's telling the state to take their procedural bar and cram it up their ass. That's one way to look at this. Using judicial estoppel. So we'll get deeper into that in the next slide. But before we do, let's talk about one of the things that they also love to invoke in the previous the previous response was that Kathleen's arguments were not sufficiently pled, right? As if she's some first-year law student. Her argument wasn't good enough to be able to meet the merit of warranting an evidentiary hearing. However, let's dig into that just a little bit deeper. Okay, she says in her presentation, if we can count the times, 13 times she counted it for us. The state argued that Kathleen's arguments were insufficiently pled. However, this is not the forum to actually argue that, because the correct standard is that the facts that Kathleen puts forward actually have to be assumed to be true. And if the statements of Kathleen's experts contradict the findings of a state expert or testimony or what have you, it's not the state's job to say, well, that doesn't dissuade anybody of any different. This doesn't prove anything anyway. It's the job of the court to say, hey, look, there's a sufficient difference between what the state said and what this person said, and if that's true, then then an evidentiary hearing is warranted to get to the bottom of what these facts are. So the state, as you can see in the chart, you try to utilize this sufficiently proven standard, and guess what? There's no such standard. As you can read in the footnote to the state's to her citation of the state. When the state tried to invoke this insufficiently pled argument, they pointed to cases where there were evidentiary hearings. So they didn't even do a good job in the cases that they cited to say that she was sufficient, that she hadn't, the sufficient pleading thing was, actually invoked. So if you have an evidentiary hearing, and then all of a sudden at the evidentiary hearing, the judge says, well, okay, I've heard your evidence, but this evidence is not enough to warrant you a new trial. Okay, well, I get that, right? That's sort of the nature of how the thing works. But we're jumping the gun if we say, okay, well, I have this evidence that's sufficiently different, and you don't even deserve an evidentiary hearing because it's not good enough. Well, the purpose of the evidentiary hearing is to decide whether that's good enough or not. If there's sufficient, if you have an expert and it sufficiently contradicts the expert's claims, what you have, then you're entitled to this evidentiary hearing. And that was an argument that she used. To me, she took the state to school on that very much. Sorry for talking so long on that. Does anybody want to make a comment on that? Linda?
Well, I would just like to say, well, that's kind of like saying, okay, we got this guy. Skip the trial, just put him in jail.
Exactly. Yeah.
Skip the steps necessary in the legal way. Just skip them. So, well, why didn't Kathleen just say, okay, well, I don't have to prove nothing. Let's just give me my hearing right now.
Just let him out. Why not just let him out? Yeah. We don't need to do any of this. Let's just let him out. Gotta skip steps and skip that one.
Must be covered in the first week of law school, I'm sure.
Hey, Jack, what do you got?
Can you imagine? You were talking about Josh and, probably Lisa reading this reply and everybody in the office, probably all gathered around reading it and then come across that footnote there. And God, what cases did we cite? Oh my God, what have you done? I mean, can you imagine? I bet there's a lot of embarrassment.
I think that's like, okay, well, we have to find some case. Let's hope she doesn't notice that. They knew they had to cite something. They couldn't just leave it blank, right?
Right. She doesn't trust anything, so she does her own, as a proper lawyer should do. She did her due diligence and took him to town with it.
Oh yeah. And she beat him. She beat him badly.
Oh my God.
Anybody else want to weigh in on that? Linda again?
I just want to say they're all doing their 24-hour later walk of shame.
Oh yeah, they have to really be trying to hide under a bus right now. They're very happy this came in near the weekend, so they had the weekend to recover. Anybody from Wisconsin hear anything about it on the local news or anything like that? BB maybe? Justin? Anything about it on the news?
No, I've seen nothing on it. And I did watch the news. Definitely last night I watched the news.
Yeah.
I don't watch the news real often.
We'll see. I guess that probably maybe when the judge rules on it, that we'll hear something.
Maybe, yeah.
On the news.
Still a little surprising that the Post-Crescent didn't pick up on the state reply and then Kathleen's reply back. I'm surprised, actually.
Well, all the egg on Josh's face, she probably ordered him not to say anything.
Oh my God.
You can feed the hungry for a month with all the omelets you can make out of all that egg.
Right. Just ask other states. They probably will hear something on the news before Wisconsin will.
Probably so. All right, why don't we move on to the estoppel argument, which is on slide 4. And this is actually there is a tangled web of information to understand this estoppel. And of course, at the center of the estoppel is that chicken wing sucking Judge Asshat Angela Sukowitz, who really is just a total stooge for the state, in really serving to do nothing but muck up what Stephen and Kathleen are trying to pull. So let me try and explain what this chart says, and I apologize if you're not watching on the YouTube. It's going to get a little complicated. So way back when Kathleen took over the case, and what was that back? That was 2015, 2016 time frame. Does anybody know the exact date of that, or the exact year?
She took the case in January of 2016, and then I think she filed the PCR in June of 2017. I think it was. Yeah. That makes sense. So, in order to file that, and I don't have that reflected on the slide, what she had to do was she had to sort of take out of the play Stephen's 2013 motion for post-conviction relief. His pro se.
His pro se motion, which obviously was not very good. And the state does make a lot to do about, oh, well, he's done with his appeals, and some of the procedural bar arises from that, which does a good job deflecting that. This is not necessarily so much about that. But that motion that Jack just talked about was denied by Judge Sukowitz. And that's that first bar arrow that you see going down. Okay. And so Kathleen was submitting a brief to the Court of Appeals. And that was when during that time frame that elapsed between those two arrows is when the VLECD is discovered. And what happened was because of that, the circuit court kicked the case back, and the legal term they use is remanded. They remanded the case back to Judge Angie, who before she could deny it, was when the time that they were talking about all this scientific testing that they wanted to do on the RAV, and that's when Kathleen was making agreements with Fallon that she was going to test the RAV, she was going to test the ilium bone that was found in the quarry. At the time, she wanted to test it with the Andy DNA. We're going to find out that she wanted to do some additional comparisons that I wasn't even aware of myself. We'll talk about them when we get to them. But before, so she made this agreement with Fallon, and the agreement was that Fallon was aware that this evidentiary hearing, since Kathleen had so much evidence that she wanted to present, was going to take a long time. So Fallon agreed that Kathleen could file, and that Kathleen could amend her brief as her scientific evidence rolled in. If you recall, the state several times in their response to Kathleen's October brief said, "Oh no, she's the one who made the decision to file before her scientific testing was done. She's procedurally barred. It's not our fault that she filed before her testing was done." Well, here's what Kathleen is saying. Well, I had this agreement with Attorney Fallon. And as a matter of fact, I put this in my October presentation. I'm going to read what she put in. On October 6, 2017, current post-conviction defense counsel spoke to the prosecutors and informed them that this motion would be filed today to vacate the order. This motion has been presented to and reviewed by the prosecutors. And this motion is with regard to the scientific testing. And the prosecutors agree to the factual accuracy of the representations regarding the content of the September 18, 2017 meeting made in this motion. And that content was that she would be able to do further scientific testing and update the motion as the results of the scientific testing came in. Okay. And because when she made that motion, The state didn't object to that motion. The state didn't attempt to clarify that motion. The state is not allowed to say, just because it's different lawyers, right? Just because it was, Fallon and company for the, at the Judge Sukowitz level, and now it's, Josh and Lisa. They're not allowed to change their tune and say, the scientific testing and the amending of the motion was acceptable back when Fallon was in charge, but all of a sudden she's procedurally barred now that Josh Call's in charge. That is exactly what judicial estoppel is. That you can't take one position in front of one judge and acknowledge it, not object to it, not clarify it, and then take a completely different position just because it moves up to the higher court. And that's what estoppel really is put in the law to prevent the fast and loose and changing of the mind willy-nilly just because it happens to suit you better. So that's really what's going on there. And so does anybody have any comments on the judicial estoppel?
Perfectly explained right there, what you just said.
Exactly. Beautifully explained. In other words, no two-sided coin here for them and one side for us.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought, I didn't really understand when I read the state's response. I was thinking to myself, well, Kathleen, this is not Kathleen's first rodeo by any stretch of the imagination. So how is it that, why did she decide to file? The way that Call and company sort of, beat on that, it was like, oh my God, they're making her sound like an idiot for doing that. She should know better than that. Well, she came back with the right argument, in my opinion.
Oh, she schooled them.
Oh, yeah.
It's and everything. So let's go back to, if they're going to make her seem like she does not know what she's talking about, she just put them right in their face. Well, geez, guys, did you ever think of this? And let me show you how it works. Teacher,
yep.
Selner 101.
Absolutely. Okay. And also with regarding, so if we move on, if there's no further comments on that slide, if we move on to the next slide, which is slide 5, at the end of the presentation, or at the end of the brief, Zellner puts in a whole bunch of tables, and I have just copied one of the examples out of that table.
I love the chart.
But so that's her chart that she refers to, and again, the issue at hand regarding this insufficiently pled is not that it is not the state's job, and it's not the court's job in evaluating the value of the appeal to come to a conclusionary remark. Okay, so just so for those of you who can't see it, Zellner makes the argument in her brief that the state's brief inadvertently concedes the need for a hearing by creating numerous factual disputes and arguing and weighing the evidence. See this factual disputes chart, and I cut this one, cut the table on the right out of the factual dispute chart. Ironically, the state uses the term conclusory 25 times in a conclusory fashion to describe Mr. Avery's arguments without explaining what is conclusory about them. So if you look at the chart, this example that they happen to that I happen to pick is one regarding the zipper answering machine, and what it is Kathleen claims it's destruction of evidence that the zipper voicemail was deleted. Because if that voicemail said, "Oh, hey, I'm sorry I missed you on the way to the Averys. I'm going to hit you on the way back from the Averys," that could completely blow up the state's that would completely blow up the state's timeline of how it happened. It could obviously be potentially exculpatory. So therefore, just losing this voicemail out of the blue, so I don't have it anymore. It's just a crock of crap. The state tries to counter with, nothing about Halbach leaving a voicemail at 2:12 p.m. stating that she can't find the zipper's house. But then later arriving at 3 p.m. does anything to contradict the state's timeline. Well, that's conclusory. That's a finding that the judge is supposed to make in the Court of Appeals, not one that they're supposed to make in consideration of whether or not an evidentiary hearing should be granted or not. Is the way that I read it from Travis anyway. So Casey's point is that it's that the existence of the factual disputes is the fact itself that demands the evidentiary hearing. Not the weighing of the factual disputes themselves, right? I think, so you might ask yourself, what's to stop, somebody from hiring an expert and say that, Teresa Hallback was murdered by getting bashed with a moon rock, right? Well, because obviously there's not that many moon rocks. Well, there's this, you're an officer of the court, and you can't, you can get in big trouble for hiring false experts that will just say anything. So there is a sort of an honor system involved and a reputation thing involved, with trying to do things willy-nilly like that. So does anybody want to make a comment? Justin, do you have a comment on that? Where'd he go? I think he bailed.
He's not here right now, but nothing
Bibi.
but a stump. But nothing but a stump came in.
Hey!
Maybe she'd like to comment.
Hey, good morning.
Yes, we're doing a Thursday for Thursday podcast, and you're welcome aboard.
Okay, all right, thank you. Sorry I chimed in late. I just woke up, so.
Oh, it's fine. No, that's why we have it here. It's
Okay,
fine.
cool.
You're good.
You got a comment, Rhonda?
Well, I just chimed in. I'm not real sure exactly well, it sounds like you're talking about the brief.
Yep.
The
And
slides are in a room right above the phone call.
oh, okay, I see that. All right, thank you.
Scroll to the top.
I chimed in when you were talking about the table at the end, and probably everyone's tired of hearing me say it, but that was my favorite part.
Yeah.
Just because it kind of wound everything up, and it really showed the little watch my language, the little slap fest she engaged in. So I really loved it. I thought it was my favorite part.
It was, to me. It really highlighted the fact that there is a huge distinction in the facts presented and asserted by the state and the facts that she's presenting and asserting. And she's not saying my facts are better than yours so much as she's saying, look, the existence of this factual dispute is what demands the evidentiary hearing, right?
Yeah, yep. And what I've been advising other people, if you don't really want to take the time or don't have the time or don't have the patience to read the whole thing, or you haven't listened to one of the many podcasts, just read that part. It doesn't take very long. And if you just read that part, and then I guess we've already discussed that the word of the year of the rest of my life is estoppel. Like the best, it was a word I hadn't heard, and it's one of my favorite words now. So yeah, it gives me hope. I have more hope after this than I've had in any other motion or brief that's been filed. So I feel really good about this.
Estoppel, the word everybody had to look up.
Oh, I stopped it. I had no idea what that word meant when I first read it. The state is stopped. I'm like, oh my God, what does that mean? Is that like when you?
Honestly, I thought it was.
Everybody ran and looked that word up when they read it. Yeah.
But Jeff, isn't it scary that that Josh and Lisa seem to have lost track of the fact that throughout the I don't know how far back in the year pre-trial that Kratz had established that Teresa did not leave the Avery salvage yard. So how could they end up at the zippers at 3:00? How could they lose track of that?
That is bizarre beyond definition. I don't. If that doesn't blow the state's case out of the water, I don't know what does. What did Stephen follow her? What is he asserting? If she left the yard, it's over.
Well, it changes everything. Did he just did Avery go chase her down somewhere and then kill her and bring her back? I mean, it just absolutely, it blows me away that they actually just completely dismissed it.
Yeah, I totally agree. Anybody else have a comment on that? My phone's misbehaving on me a little here. No, okay. Yeah, excellent. So, so why don't we move on to slide 6? And,
I love the title for that one.
Subparagraph 2 of Zellner's response, right? Roman numeral 2, I should say, right? She had 6 or 7 Roman numerals in there. Was titled, "The state's erroneous application of the fundamental principles of post-conviction review." And this is something that if you've exonerated 20 some people in your career, you can say to that, she's saying to Josh and Lisa and her, in that statement, "This is my house, bitches. This is my house you're talking about. You have just entered the realm of my domain, my expertise."
I'm the fucking expert, not you.
Exactly. This is my house. And and so that's what that is. Totally in my opinion.
And I was watching my language.
Oh, don't do that. We don't. That's not what we want on Thirsty for Theory Thursday. We want the raw emotion.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's. If you have something for us, let's hear it.
Okay. Well, I was just going to say bitch slap when I made my comment earlier, but I thought, I don't know where I'm at. I better behave. So.
Oh no.
Okay,
Yeah.
good to know.
This is not Father Jeff's Sunday church review. This is Thirsty for Theory Thursday.
Okay. All right.
where we let the state have it, especially if it's coming.
There goes the money for FOIA.
Yeah. Oh, well.
Oops.
Oh, we don't make 15 cents.
Yeah, whatever.
That's 3 pages of a FOIA request, BB.
I'll just toss in $10 now, so I'll be safe for the whole thing. Maybe. How's that?
Now that it's blown, we might as well just blow it to smithereens.
Exactly. Just go ahead.
All right. Sorry. Carry on.
So
everybody who cusses, turn in $1 afterwards, and we'll be good.
So this is the exclamation point in the previous slide, because what she says, and she says this in the way of introduction, and again, we're kind of working backwards in this presentation, that a post-conviction movement need only provide sufficient objective factual assertions to be entitled to an evidentiary hearing. That is, a movement need not demonstrate the theories of admissibility for every factual assertion he or she seeks to induce. And there's some cases there which I don't read because I can't pronounce the names, but Susan does a much better job than I do. But yeah, okay, so yeah, we don't have to argue every single little thing. This is not the trial here, bozos. This is the assessment of whether or not there's sufficient factual differences to warrant an evidentiary hearing. So those are the two things that in my mind are essential to understand if you're going to take a read of this briefing. And really never forget that the goals that she wants out of the briefing is either further scientific testing, an evidentiary hearing, or a new trial. We know she's not getting a new trial just from this brief. So really she wants further scientific testing to be restored because Judge Asshat denied that of her, or the evidentiary hearing itself. So those are her two goals, and that's the roadmap for her going forward.
And once again, this is another spot where she is having to school them on how the procedure works because they're not clear on how the procedure works or trying to pull the wool over somebody's eyes.
They can't even get what was presented at trial, and for a year prior. And so, I mean, she didn't trust anything that they put forward. Nothing, and she did great, really, by just, I don't know the right word, deconstructing what they tried to do.
Oh yeah, I think deconstructing is a perfect word. Definitely. Okay, anybody else? Put myself on mute. That wouldn't be good. All right, so quick. Oh, yeah. Somebody have a comment?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, she's basically telling them there's a process here, dudes, and you're not jumping over this, and you're not giving me no merit, and we're just going to have to do this the right way. Back off, right? I mean, that's basically what it is.
This is my house.
Yeah,
I agree. I so agree. So agree. Okay, so quickly on slide 7, just an introduction. This is Thirsty for Theory Thursday, so I thought I might take the time to. Did Kathleen have any new theories? And of course, we can talk about all the old ones that we want. But I thought that it was interesting that to me she dropped a couple of new things that I hadn't really heard before. Maybe it's because didn't read the things very deeply, the affidavits and whatnot very deeply. So maybe it's to me that I didn't read the affidavits sufficiently deeply. But to me there were a couple of new things. Okay. Regarding the internet searches, and I think we did know this. This is kind of an existing thing. At the state trial, the primary witness, Bobby Dassey, who we'll call Bobby from here on in, committed perjury when he testified that Ms. Hallbach never left the Avery property, and that he was asleep when he was doing internet searches. He has a direct connection to the murder by his subsequent admissions, violent pornography, and word searches that reflect knowledge of the crime and the victim, motive and opportunity to commit the crime, and plant evidence against Mr. Avery, including bones from his burn barrel, I think it's Barb's burn, and blood from Mr. Avery's sink. And you know, in the tables that we talk about, Zellner cites that Bobby's trial testimony that he was asleep from 6:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. is contradicted by current post-conviction counsel's expert, Mr. Hunt, who found that Bobby accessed the computer 6 times during that time frame. Now, has anybody actually heard of sleep searching? I've heard of sleepwalking, but not sleep searching. Have anybody heard of that?
No.
No. Ronnie, you have a comment?
Sleep eating,
I'm gonna
sleep
say
sex.
when I first read that part, because I was I think a lot of us when it came in, we just hurried and started reading, and so when we were all together in the call but reading silently, and when I read that, I literally scratched my head and said, "What?" It made me chuckle because I just thought when he was sleeping, he wasn't sleeping. Anyway, that's kind of where my head went.
He said he was at trial, though, didn't he? He certainly said that.
Yeah.
And you know, the reason why I grabbed this picture is because this picture is taken from the same angle that a certain Sherry Culhane picture is taken from. And you guys all know this. BB likes to call her side-eye Culhane. And that's because, you know, that Kratz does this pre-trial, I don't know, what's the right word, sort of coaching. Yes, thank you. Yep. of his people, and from that angle, to me, it's pretty obvious that he's getting questioned, but he's looking over at the prosecution table. Is like, oh my God, I'm in a corner. What the fuck do I say now? Right. That's the look of, oh my God, I'm painted into a corner. To me,
I think he's watching for Kratz to. I think he's watching for Kratz to rub his mustache so he knows what to do next.
Yeah, or object or call for a recess or something. Yeah, so
Kratz with his little signals of rubbing his mustache.
Yeah, yep, you've definitely said enough. Time to stop talking here. Moving on to slide number 9. It's still on Bobby, obviously. Bobby committed perjury at Mr. Avery's trial when he testified that he never saw Ms. Hallbach leave the Avery property. Well, the sad news is he told his brother Brian something different. And he told Brian Dassey, and Brian Dassey submitted an affidavit to Kathleen Zellner that said, you know what? Bobby told me that he saw Teresa Hallbach leave the Avery salvage yard. So which one of these things is true? Because these two things are not like the other. So who do we believe here?
He told the DCI agents too on, I want to say it was November 6th was the report. I'd have to look.
So he was interviewed on the 6th. I would love to hear. I mean, one of the things that we don't have, and I don't even know if Kathleen has it, is Bobby's November 9th interview. That's one thing that we've asked for. It's recorded. It was the same day that Stephen was arrested, the same day that they recorded Earl Avery's interview, the same day they recorded Chuck Avery's interview on the way to the hospital. Bobby's also interviewed on the 9th. We hear in the jail calls that when Stephen is talking to Dolores, which is pretty much one of the persons he talks to the most, that Barb says they really gave Bobby They really gave Bobby a good grilling, and he was all rattled from it on November 9th. We don't have that interview. I'd love to hear what he says in that interview.
Well,
and why don't we have it?
There has to be a reason why they won't release it.
Yeah. What do you think that reason might be, Jack?
It hurts their case. Desperately hurts their case.
That's a reason I think too. If it helped it,
the only reason there is. That's the only reason that there could be.
Yeah.
Well, they've released all these other interviews and other bits and pieces around it, and this one particular one, they're going to say, well, we might damage the tape, or bullcrap. It's been cut. I would have to say for sure that Zellner's probably got it, but
if the tape's that fragile, it's all the more reason to hurry up and convert it into MP3.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant.
Get it on a CD and a thumb drive, and on a hard drive.
Exactly.
Back it up
all the more
14
reason.
different ways.
Yeah.
And let's not also forget about the value of those of us who sit behind our computers, whether or not we actually accomplish anything. As other people have said, we don't. But there was a long time for which we did not know of the existence of this. And as a matter of fact, the state at some time in the past, more than a couple of years ago, denied that they even ever had this thing at all, that they even taped that interview. But guess what? Somebody did a FOIA, I think it was Henbury, and there's actually a picture of the friggin' mini cassette that says Bobby Dassey, November 9th.
Yep,
so
and the ledgers too that we got. It's in the ledgers.
In the ledgers too, yep. There are many of the stuff that us internet researchers do is actually helped Stephen's case along and provided awareness. So if for some reason you think otherwise, then you can take your opinion and stuff it.
Look at Carol Ann Fitzgerald, what she did with Zellner and pointing out the bone thing and getting Zellner to understand that those bones are gone.
Yep. Absolutely. So keep on. If you're an internet researcher, don't be disheartened by people who tell you you're doing nothing. Okay.
And we're keeping it out there every day and keeping more people aware of it constantly.
I totally agree.
So whoever said that is full of bull and can take a walk and pound sand.
It's probably a guilter.
I'll tell you who it was after the podcast.
Well, I already know. I was just being nice and saying whoever they were. To go pound sand, and that's straight from me. And if they don't like it, they can bite me. I don't care. Whatever.
Yep. Any other? So we're going to remain on Bobby. Any other comments before we move on to the next slide? Okay. Let's go on to the next one, which is which is not that one. Slide 10. It would be. This is something that I hadn't heard yet. She kind of drops two bombs in this with regard to the bird barrels. Now I pray that our friend Moving On 04 is around to see this, because I think her research might someday play an important part in evaluating what really went on here. But let's talk about what Zellner asserts. And we have to keep in mind that Zellner is on Team Reasonable Doubt. I know there's occasionally family members that pop in and watch this. If for some reason Stephen and or Brendan should be exonerated and they walk out of prison, that doesn't necessarily imply that somebody else is going to be escorted into the prison, right? It's about creating reasonable doubt. Certainly everything that she's doing with Bobby is she's not trying to convict him. She's trying to establish reasonable doubt. But she goes on to say about the burn barrels themselves. The Dassey burn barrel bones had cut marks. The gravel pit bones had cut marks. By destroying the gravel pit bones, the state prevented Dr. Symes, Mr. Avery's expert, from matching the cut marks between the burn barrel and gravel pit, thereby establishing that the Dassey burn barrel was the primary burn site. This evidence would establish a direct connection between the Dassey burn barrel and the mutilation of Miss Halbach and the subsequent planting of the bones in Mr. Avery's burn pit. Clearly, the killer performed all of these tasks. And she goes on to say that Dr. DeHaan stated the discovery of larger fragments outside the margins of Avery's burn pit. Remember the front end loader picture? I wish I had that. I wish I could have found that. Outside the margins of Avery's burn pit, and the finding of human bone fragments with similar degree of fire damage in numerous other areas is also consistent with the dumping of burn remains into the alleged burn pit, with some rolling or landing outside the pit. Well, that's an interesting theory that I really hadn't. There's two things there that I really hadn't unpacked. From reading the DeHaan material. The first being the latter, that the fact that those bones were kind of spread over. We know they were very small in the first place, but you can kind of see if you took a burn barrel and you sort of dumped it into the burn pit, how that might have gotten everywhere, as opposed to just being isolated.
Especially because it wasn't a burn pit. It was actually a burn area until they got hold of it with that bobcat.
Yeah, exactly.
There was no pit to it. Everybody keeps saying pit. It was just a burn area.
Yep. And they got that bobcat and they dug a hole. Like, look at the size of this hole. Even Scott Tadich on the Christmas phone call with Stephen Avery says, "Oh yeah, it's the size of a dining room table at the largest." So it was not only was it an area, but it was a relatively small area as well. Anybody else? So and the part one of that, which I have not had not heard before, was that with this regard to the cut marks. I've definitely heard, and what's conspicuous by its absence in this part of the brief was the anti-DNA testing that Zellner proposes to do. That's not mentioned at all. If we can match the cut marks, then we can establish that it's likely the same. Bones from the same source. Not even be able to determine whether they're necessarily animal or not. It's the cut marks are gonna tell for us. And when you think about it, when you think about this dumping, let's assume for a second that it was Stephen and he did primarily burn the body in the Dassey burn barrel. Would he be stupid enough to go over and empty it into his own burn pit? Why would he do that? Right? He's already disseminating.
So unreasonable.
Yeah. He's already putting some at Michael's Quarry, some in the Manitowoc County.
He's a genius and an idiot.
And an idiot at the same time. We know they've only recovered 40% of the skeletal remains, or as Dr. Silkman would say, the skeletal remains. We only know they've only so that means there's 60% of it missing. So whoever hid it hid 60% pretty well. And left 40%. Some of it in, some of it in Stephen's burn pit, some of it elsewhere. But why in the world? And we also know from the affidavit of Dr. Symes that you just cannot possibly have enough fuel to burn a body in an open fire pit, right? And we also know that tires are not a sufficient accelerant to do that. If it was done, it probably had to be done in a closed container like a burn barrel to be able to
generate enough heat.
Generate enough heat there and get that heat reflected back from the sides. So that's to me that's a very convincing argument. I don't think that Stephen would be stupid enough to dump it in his own thing, especially if he's dumping them if he's dumping them elsewhere. Why would he consider that his own burn pit would be a smart place to do that?
You put them everywhere but there, right?
Yeah,
You spread them
exactly.
all
Absolutely.
around you anywhere, but not there.
It was really
Yeah.
smart of what she picked up on too about the cut marks. I never even considered it. And when they gave away those bones to the haul box, man, that really drives the bus right back to the Dassey burn barrel because there's nothing else left.
Yeah. Now, I invoked our friend moving on, and I hope you're still hearing this moving on. We know that she's really sick, but she's done some excellent research. Since this Thirsty for Theory Thursdays, we do happen to know that all of the barrels, including barrels from the deer camp, right, were taken into Calumet custody, but for some reason, a certain sweaty DA said, "Oh no, we have to bring one of these barrels back to the Avery property." Right? Isn't that the case that happened?
Yep. It did happen.
Yeah, it went on a
Why?
joyride.
Why?
Yeah.
Which one?
What? Where in a case anywhere would that ever happen?
Exactly.
Another thing about the cut marks, and I haven't read the whole trial yet, but as far as I know, there wasn't much emphasis put on the cut marks at trial. Was there? I mean,
well, that's because Kratz didn't want to spend more than a minute or 20 seconds talking about them.
But those were in the burn barrel. I mean, some of the bones in the burn barrel had cut
I'm not
marks.
sure that it was already discussed at all. I don't recall.
That's always confused me.
I think they did. The thing we would have to remember is that Stephen was exonerated of the charge of mutilating a corpse, and that those cut marks are the only evidence of mutilation. So I would imagine they had to have been brought up in that context, not in a correlation with the quarry bones, but certainly the mutilation context. It's probably the only context they were brought up in. That's just my guess, and I'm looking forward to listening to Susan read it.
I'm looking forward to reading it. Yeah.
Excellent. Anybody else have a comment on this? So to me, she does make a hard run at Bobby, I think, with this, and that's probably to me that's appropriate from the perspective of she. I think Millbilly told me that she was only 12 words short of her word limit. Right, so that's not even enough time to get into an argument that that Kratz might have been playing 3-card Monte with the burn barrels. So go ahead.
Well, once again, she only has to bring up the initial stuff,
right,
to get in, and then once she's in, she can further describe stuff. Yes.
That's an extremely astute observation, because that's what her brief is about. It's about getting that evidentiary hearing or further scientific testing.
With the bare minimum that she has to say to get it, so that way she could get in there and unpack her boxes and be like, what about this, bitches? And what about that? And what about this? And take that. And here's this and stuff this. And
well, in relationship to Bobby, also, I don't know, I'm not sure if it's in one of your slides. I haven't looked at all of them yet, but the Belly CD, and it's key. It's really important because it ties right in with it. All of this right here.
Yeah. I actually was going to leave that, but go ahead, bring it up. It's time.
Without directly reading, well, actually, I can. I think I still have it open. I'm looking.
Okay, take your time.
I mean, there's so much she has already in so many different directions to go after them.
Yep.
When she gets in there and unpacks this, remember the picture of her desk buried under the paperwork from this?
And the papers all over the floor. Yeah, I do remember that. Yep.
Yeah. That's what it's going to look like when she gets into court.
I've talked a lot about the Billy CD, and because it really bothers me because of how it was treated by the state. Is just a piece of property that a state agent can do with what he wanted to do with that CD plus that report, and he just stuck in his pocket, even though it was discovery. And then they want to come back later and say, "Oh no, she wasn't really." And this is in his brief, their brief. Yes. Yep. That they weren't basically this was work product and she wasn't really due to get it. Well, if it's work product, then why did Kratz ever release it? He wouldn't.
That's right.
And I understand, we all understand that prosecutors' work product is not viewable. That's their work that they do whatever with. But this CD was not that at all. So
No,
that to me, that argument completely fails. But anyway, tying all this together with the Dassey burn barrel with this CD. And again, I'm not, I don't know if Bobby did it or not. I brought up a theory, and this is just a theory. And we were just talking earlier. Zellner has said that Teresa was contacted by a non-telephonic means. In other words, she wasn't called. To me, that leaves an open text, a text message. So who's to say that someone, let's just say Bobby, and I'm not saying he did it. I'm just saying, since we're talking about him, let's just say that Bobby sent her a text and said, "Hey, I've got a car that I want you to do a hustle shot. It's on Cuss Road. Need to meet you there." We don't have those texts. And I don't know how reasonable that sounds to anyone, but if what she's saying is true, there you go.
Well, I mean, the reason why she says that is because if that is really the voicemail that she left on Barb's answering machine that we've heard so much that several people suspect might be the zipper email,
right.
The voicemail, I mean. Then how did she ever figure out that it was the Averys that she was supposed to go to if nobody told her, right? So she calls them up in the morning and says, I don't know who you are and I don't know how to get there and I can't get there unless you tell me. Where's the evidence of how she found out where she was going?
That's right.
Did you have some epiphany? And so Zellner's argument as well, she must have been contacted by some means that's not that's not telephonic.
That's exactly right. And
So-
we've wondered that for a long time, and it's never answered.
No, it has not been answered. And back to your point about the Veely CD, the reason why that argument fails completely for me is that our good friends Colburn and Link, the whole reason that they were in Stephen's bedroom in that final search where they quote unquote discovered the key was because they were supposedly collecting pornographic material. Now Zellner actually cites in her brief a case where the state alleges that these pornographic type searches are indeed potentially indicative of behavior and are possibly evidentiary. Well, Flink and Coburn are collecting this stuff because pornographic material is somehow even potentially evidentiary to the prosecution. Then the Veely CD, which is clearly isolating the electronically, the pornographic, the BDSM, the whatever.
Death porn.
Yeah, I don't even know what you call it. Just that horrific stuff.
Decapitations.
Drowning.
Oh my God! Yeah. It's just a horrible list of shit.
It's definitely horrible, and it doesn't mean you're a murderer, but it's potentially evidentiary, which is why they're collecting it in the first place. Who ordered them to collect that? Who ordered them to find search terms that they could potentially use against Brendan? And oops! Oh, by the way, we can prove that these searches were done while he was at school. Into Tom Fassbender's drawer we go.
And part of the stuff they collected on Steve wasn't even porn, but if it's Steve, it counts. If it's somebody else, then
yep.
Yeah.
Well, we've talked about it before. If
pedophile equals star witness.
If they'd have found these images and these searches on Stephen's computer, we wouldn't be talking right now.
That's right.
No.
Exactly.
We'd be off on another case, and they had never even met.
Yep.
Exactly. So, does anybody else have a comment they want to make on Bobby or the Veely CD? All right. I see no lights going off. All right. Okay. So why don't we move on to slide 11? So we're past the theories.
Judge Angie's adult.
Judge Angie is adult because, and the funny thing is that Kathleen didn't have to say it, but the state Josh and Lisa actually had to admit that the state points out how many, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times that the circuit court made a legal error, and that they had to agree with Kathleen. And Zellner quotes, I quote Zellner, the circuit court orders are replete with legal errors. Because of its legal errors, the circuit court failed to address many of the issues Mr. Avery raised, so there's no record of these for this court to determine whether the circuit court erroneously exercised its discretion. In fact, it's an extraneous exercise of discretion to fail to exercise discretion over multiple issues. All right, so in other words, if I brought these up, you have to tell me why you're denying this issue. Here's the issue I'm addressing. I'm denying it. Here's why I'm denying it. But she didn't do that. As a matter of fact, she even confused post-conviction with appeal trial and whatnot, and Zellner showed a case where that happened before, and they had to grant either a new trial or an evidentiary hearing because of it. So so Judge Yancey, in her haste, couldn't even get the damn thing right. Don't they have like a technical editor that they send these things to?
One would think.
Obviously not, right?
Well, you would think she would have at least, one paralegal or someone below her that's going to help her out.
Exactly.
Yeah, what do they call them?
One, but six. Come on.
They have aides or something, legal paralegal, not paralegals, but
intern.
Like apprentice, intern.
Interns are
lawyers,
free.
yeah.
Interns are free, for God's sakes, to sit and go through things. You
would say that the saying is like, this person clerked for judge such and such.
Yes.
Clerk.
Exactly.
We couldn't do that because somebody else would have to know their lies. Okay, let's get real here. They couldn't have somebody help them with this. They'd be doing it the legal way, and they're not doing it the legal way.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's an excellent point, Linda, because if you're not going to follow the law, then why would you have a law clerk review it?
That's my thoughts, but who am I? I'm not a lawyer.
That's right. That's awesome. So Angie's an idiot. We know she's a stooge for the state, right? She made that ruling. That was probably when they discovered certain things were gone. Fallon probably went to her and said, "Oh my God, we're in a world of hurt. What can we happen?" And they hatched this plan. Oh my God, if I just rule now, that'll leave Zellner high and dry. It just so seems to me to be part of the plan that Zellner they tried to play Zellner like that, and Zellner whips out this estoppel to counteract their shenanigans, which is just great.
One word cuts them dead.
All right. Why don't we move on to the next one? Because I know this is one of everybody's favorite things. If I could ask Susan, we have some pieces of an interview that Ken Kratz gave posted on the wall. If you could read those for us, that would be greatly appreciated. Many of you remember he made a tweet along these same lines. I don't happen to have a copy of the tweet, but this interview says basically the same thing. So Susan, could you take it away for us?
Sure, I'd love to. And I just want to say hi to all you super sleuth nut jobs.
Thank you. It's good to hear. It's good to hear from you too, Ken. Maybe you can tell us how your house sales going.
Well, than the real Kratz.
I said that Kathleen's tests disproved no such thing, that it was item FL that went, that she was shot in the head. I'm sorry. Because, and I quote myself, because 2 bullets were recovered and 2 entrance wounds were observed in her skull, does not mean that those 2 fragments went through her skull. And I said that in my closing statement on page 98. And although only 2 bullet fragments were recovered, there were 11 shell casings recovered. I doubted the jury would be able to determine the number of times she was shot. And I was referring to my closing statement there. And because the majority of Teresa Halbach's remains were destroyed by fire, the number of times she was shot will likely remain a mystery. What can be determined is what appears in the trial transcript, most notably what was said by me, the prize. A claim by Kathleen Zellner to show otherwise represents an intentional misrepresentation of fact. She needs to be called out for her playing fast and loose with the historical record. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kratz. If you could please crawl back under your rock, we'd all appreciate it.
Okay, I'll go back to my cave. Thank you.
Get your ass back over there. I'll get that Carl fucking Baskins to beat your ass.
Is that the cave that he's been currently hiding
wonderful.
in? Is that the cave you've been currently hiding in?
Oh.
Now, have you been taking
his own experts then, right, in the trial?
By the way, Kratz, good luck on the sale of your house. It seems slightly overpriced, but maybe you'll get there.
The sweaty wallpaper makes me nuts.
Well, he was the prize because he had a $400,000 house, right? Isn't that why he was the prize?
The first wife got that.
You know it.
But the house is on the market for about three and a quarter, isn't it?
That's the second house. His wife got the first house, right?
Oh, okay.
Let me remind you, I still have my pension.
Yeah.
I'm sure the wife got the first house.
I think they sold it and split the proceeds.
This is the granddaughter bride prize house.
Yep, she'll get it.
All right. So, yeah, you guys are going to be very surprised, but I think that there's actually something that we can agree with in what Prosecutor Kratz just said. Because he did say what can be determined is what appears in the trial transcript. So let's turn to the trial transcript, which we quote on slide 12. The state's forensic pathologist, Dr. Jensen, testified that Ms. Halbach's cause of death was the result of 1 or 2 gunshot wounds to her head. Dr. Jensen testified at trial that Ms. Halbach's DNA got on item FL when it traveled through her brain. Whoops-a-daisy. Anybody have any idea on why that statement contradicts what Mr. Kratz just said?
It completely does.
It doesn't contradict me because I didn't say it.
But you had your expert say it, so yeah.
Well, we agree.
It's a matter of perception.
I think Mr. Kratz said, what can be determined is what appears in the trial transcript. And in the trial transcript, item FL travels through her brain. Isn't that what your expert said, Kenny McKennington?
You got me there.
Isn't that paid testimony right there? You're expert.
Right.
Yeah.
I thought nobody knew the case better than him. He should remember everything everybody said.
Maybe when he made the interview, he didn't have the case file in front of him.
Details like that. I mean, come on.
I hear that makes a difference with him.
Oh, you're right.
Absolutely.
He does. Yeah, he says, I don't have it in front of me, but he shouldn't have needed it then either. So he just continues to make an asshat out of himself.
It's hard to keep the lie straight. You know, once you start a lie, then you have to tell another lie to cover that lie. Then you've got 2 lies, and then that just blows up from there.
Yeah, and you have to be smart for that. So I think he ruled that out, the first lie.
Or a habitual liar.
Well, to me, when the excellent readers at the Foul Play YouTube channel, when we get beyond the pretrial, we start reading the trial itself, I think we're going to find more things like this. And Ken, you're not the be all end all. What your witnesses say matter. Sorry, that's just the way it's going to be. I bet we're going to find more stuff too. People contradicting themselves, just like we found in the pre-trial with Fassbender, right, Jack?
Oh, absolutely. And also the one recently that actually George just did a FOIA, the Manitowoc County Summary Report, the MTSO Summary Report, because I'm not sure, you probably haven't heard it, but when Buting was questioning him under cross in the pre-trial, Colburn had a 24-page report, the MTSO Summary Report, and all we have is 17 pages. So where's those other 7 pages? If you go look through the discovery stuff, there is one 24-page report. There's another 22-page report. So I don't know. Hopefully what George has requested, we can get some answers. We'll see.
That'd be great. And another set of pages I'd like to see is the 30 missing pages of the dog report that Braun has that she read during her Mammothon segment with Millbilly. I'd love to see those. Did they take the dogs? Did they take the dogs to the turnaround? Did they take them to the places where the round was spotted? I'd love to know that.
I don't know. I know that there's one dog report that we don't have for sure. I can't remember her name. It's Jennifer something, I think. I could be wrong about that though. I'm trying to think.
Yeah, she wasn't from Great Lakes Search and Rescue. She was from the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't have that, and I'm sure it's been requested.
Yes. There are a lot of stuff we'd love to see there, but that testimony just blows the state's argument out of the water. The prosecutor never said that FL went through her skull. Well, the jury heard something different from the state's expert. Sorry.
It kind of makes you wonder, in his preparation with Dr. Jensen, what did they cover? Was that a fuck up on his part? Did he just come out and say this, and it's something that Kratz didn't cover, and he's probably sitting there cringing, knowing the fact that this has just been admitted in open court. He's an expert. He's picking as an expert, so his word matters.
I can't wait to see what the context was in the trial. I mean, I wonder if it was Dean or Jerry potentially badgering him.
I've read it, but I can't recall, Jeff.
Yeah, no, it'll get read. It'll get read at some point.
Oh, absolutely, it's coming.
We'll all be able to listen to it, and we'll know the context. It sounds like a smart ass answer to me to Dean or Jerry. Well, how do you if it's not any one of these bodily fluids, then how did her DNA get on it? It got on it when it went through her brain. You can see it, right? You can see some smart ass know-it-all saying something like that.
Probably, but we've all seen pictures of people getting shot in the head, and it's bloody. It is. There's blood everywhere. So,
yep.
I don't know.
It obviously just grazed her and went and hit the wall, and then it bounced back and hit the compressor.
That's right.
That's some magic 22 bullet there. Wow, that's really powerful for 22.
I think it's the tarp, the bulletproof tarps that to do that. I'm still trying to purchase one.
Steve's obviously not a very good shot.
And this bullet also had a cloaking device because it was able to evade the searches of the November 5th through November 9th, right? All the searches that were done in the garage where they took it.
It might have little wheels on it, so it could hide underneath the compressor. It could just.
It's just a tiny little fragment, They could easily overlook that.
Easily. Yeah.
Very easy.
I've seen the pictures.
When you're at a crime scene looking for things like bullets. Sure.
Yeah, they found 11 shell casings. Right?
Took them 5 times to find the key. So.
Yep.
Yeah. Keys are much bigger.
And I still won. I won.
I thought we asked you to please return to Under Your Rock, Mr. Kratz.
Back to the cave.
You're not getting rid of me that easy.
Fix your rat prize.
You're not getting your Christmas card from me now. You're really starting to get under my skin. All right. Does anybody have any further comments on the absolute dismantling of the state's argument about not saying that this was the bullet that went through her skull? And they just can't. They cannot hide from that, right? Bam.
I think it's great. I love that part of. That's like my outside of the word estoppel. I think this is the best part of the brief to me.
Yeah. Thank you, Linda. Anybody else? All right, so we're winding down toward the end of my slides, and so I did so moving on to slide 13. I did a TTT with Dr. Silkman, where we went through the DNA evidence, and I think it's been so long. It was a two-parter, and it's in the second part where we actually got on to A23. And I came right out and I asked him outright if, and I wish that he was here, and he's a little under the weather, so please send your thoughts and prayers out to Dr. Silkman, because he's a tremendous asset to the MAM community. A lot like Travis Wilkerson, he has specific knowledge that we really need to help us understand the case, and nobody's done more than Dr. Silkman to make us aware of the details of the forensic evidence in this case. But I specifically asked him, and maybe Zoe, you could put that particular TTT parts 1 and 2 in the description of this video. But I asked him flat out, if Kathleen Zellner could get to test the RAV right now, and assuming they didn't wipe that A23 off with Windex or something like that, would it be possible to get a genomic profile out of that blood stain that was? And his answer to me in that presentation was probably not. That too much time has elapsed, and that sample has likely decayed.
And it also would depend on how they stored it, he said, because it would have had to been stored at a certain temperature. Yeah. Ideal, to long-term storage it. Yeah.
Right.
But at the time, he said, if you can see it with your naked eye, there is no reason in the world why Helmet Head shouldn't have been able to use her side eyes and get enough of it to make a full.
Well, you're forgetting one reason. Yeah. You're forgetting one reason that it was exculpatory towards Stephen and Brendan, right? There's one reason.
Right.
Not to do it. Right?
But he said, if you could physically see the blood with your naked eye, there is no way you can't get a full profile. There's more than enough blood there to many times take it and do it and get full profile. So for her to not be able to get a full profile, there's absolutely no reason in the world why she couldn't have been able to do that at the time.
So my question here is, is Zellner kind of angling for another Youngblood violation here? In other words, it seems to me not only could they have gotten a full profile had they redone the test, which they obviously didn't do. Another thing they could have done was sort of scrape the sample of this blood off of A23 off the back of the RAV and put it into some type of storage, right? At the end of the day, how different how different is this this blood sample from the pubic hair that was discovered on Penny Bernstein that turned out to be Gregory Allen?
It's not.
I mean, it's not.
Basically
it might require different preservation. Hairs are good because they sort of last forever, but the blood may have required extra, like you said, BB,
temperature control,
temperature or what have you. But how's it different? It's potentially a scalp, and they knew it. They knew it didn't match Brendan and Stephen. Where's the intellectual curiosity as to where it came from?
Well, if they were doing a proper investigation, you'd want them to. What if there's a third person?
That's right. It doesn't matter. It specifically says in their order to preserve DNA thing. Blood is on there. So they needed to do whatever it was to preserve that. And they obviously did it because, of course, they don't really care.
It was exculpatory, and they knew it. It should have been preserved under Judge Willis's orders. There's no doubt. And I think that there's an argument there that she could make if she ever gets this evidentiary hearing. That's indeed the case. And we've suspected that that the RAV itself is gone. We know that there's laws in Wisconsin that say you only have to keep cuttings of the side panels or the rugs or the seats or whatever, because it's too much of a burden to store the whole car. So many of us have suspected that the RAV itself is long gone, along with A23. So if that's really gone, whether it's gone because the RAV is gone or whether it's gone because they didn't bother to properly preserve it, to me, there's a potential issue there. Anybody else have a comment on A23?
Well, yesterday somebody briefly brought up too that isn't even discovered until it's back in the lab, but yet all of them cops were standing around that car, covering that car, everything else, and nobody sees a blood spot right on the back.
They have a picture of Tom Fassbender standing right there, and you can see it, I guess, in the picture, but he didn't see it.
He's right behind it. He's right there.
He's right there in the back. It's absolutely no way that seasoned detective would ever miss anything like that. They know their job.
Exactly right. And if you listen to go ahead, please.
There's no way that she couldn't get a full profile from that. I
100% agree with you.
Exactly, that's what Silkman said. If you could see it with your naked eye, I mean, come on, it shows up in pictures. Yeah.
Same for A13.
There's no reason. She could have many times over.
What's A13, Jack?
The SD cards.
Oh.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's blood on the on A13's blood. A blood spot. It's on one of the memory cards. And
wow.
she could pull a profile off of it miraculously. I don't understand that either.
If you see blood, it doesn't look watered, or something like that, you're going to get a DNA profile out of it. They're lying through their...
Yes, Silkman says there's no way in hell, if you can see blood with the naked eye, you can get more than enough blood to get a full profile.
And who would know better than Dr. Silkman, huh? I mean,
nobody.
Right. He's an expert witness for us.
That's right. He also talks about a more nefarious angle of A23 where, it's there's not one report on it, but different things about it appear on multiple different reports, as if Culhane was trying to hide his existence. And I'm sure he's talked about it. Maybe you could also link Zoe his presentation on, I think he has one just on A23, or maybe the blood evidence as a whole in the description here, so people can go watch that if they want to. But there is a little bit of attempted sneakiness that I guess Jerry Buting ferreted out during the trial to even ask her about it in the first place.
Can I ask?
Please.
Would the mixture of DNA, which we know we've never had on there, would that make it where they wouldn't get a full profile? Do you think? I don't know.
That's a great question for Tony.
2 full profiles. They should get 2 full profiles then. Just like how FL had Teresa's and Sherry's.
Yeah. That whether you get it like the ingredients of a cake batter that's been mixed up and you can't tell one from the other, you just get the sum of the two, or whether it's possible to distinguish the two, I don't know.
Think about that.
I think you get all the markers and then you just put which markers go to which person.
Think about the whole Claw case and what they found on that zipper. Originally, that text said that there was one profile, but it turns out there's 4.
Yeah, and it's from skin or touch or whatever.
It's touch DNA.
Yeah.
So fishiness everywhere you look, as usual. There's not one clean thing in this whole case. Yeah. So any further
Yeah, there
comments
is.
on
The hood latch. The hood
the hood
latch
latch,
Bob's
right?
the only clean thing in this whole thing.
Yeah, but that should be dirty.
Yep.
Good point, baby.
That's a great point. Yep.
Well,
Yeah.
way back in the day, I used to challenge people to show me one clean thing in this whole case because everything's dirty. And I was thinking about it one day, and I thought, well, wait a minute, there is one clean point. That hood latch swap. That thing should be dirty could be, as dirty as those tires are, practically.
Right.
You know,
That's a point out. I like that, BB.
and it's way too clean. You know.
Yep. Very clever. I like that. Okay. Awesome. BB, any further comments on that?
Oh no, I'm good.
Okay. Good. Okay. Yeah. So all right. So we move on to the next slide, which is my last slide before we open the floor for discussion on anything you want to. I felt it was very interesting that she does not also mention, you brought up item A13, right, Jack? She also doesn't bring up item CX, which was the blood spot in the quarry, right? Which I thought would be interesting to bring up, especially in that footnote that she has there. And she also doesn't bring up the Andy's DNA testing. I wonder if she's nervous about the admissibility of that, or didn't want to get into the admissibility of that in her brief, or maybe it was because the state didn't comment on the admissibility in theirs that she didn't bring that up. But with that, I'm happy to open the floor up to anybody who wants to talk about what their favorite part of the brief was, or any of these things. Go ahead.
She might have not brought up the rapid DNA because it no longer applies since they gave the human bones back.
Yeah, the state did say that the state did say in their response that there were some human bones remaining in the samples they had. I don't know whether that's true or not, or I should say suspected human bones, otherwise known as leftover KFC, that still remains.
Right.
I'm sure they got rid of everything.
And it really pisses me off that they never once have made any slight statement anywhere to the chicken wing.
Yeah.
The
Welcome to
chicken
the phone.
wing that is in that collection.
Clearly, bone.
That has always pissed me off. Why can't there be, when they're saying, suspected human bones, possible animal bones, definitely one chicken wing bone that was collected.
Why don't they just say, we gave what we knew to be human back to the hall box, and the rest is all KFC. Let's just get real about it, okay, guys? So it was nothing in the quarry. That was all people eating their picnic food, and they just left it there. Sorry, my detectives didn't know the difference.
I'll read you an old Reddit post. It's a cutting, or it's a snip of Sherry's report, and this is a November 14th report, and it says human deoxy, I can't pronounce the deoxy bionucleic DNA acid was isolated from items A1, A6, A8, A9, A12, A13A, A14, B1-5, C, and D1. Anyway, I'm not going to read the entire thing. Anyway, it goes on down. It says item 13A, swabbings from the compact flash card were recovered from the cargo area. Now, according to this, nothing else was done with it. It was never tested.
Why wouldn't they test that?
I don't know. I thought it was, and there was no profile, but according to this, it was never tested.
And nobody either, maybe they overlooked it. I don't know. I was wondering why they would not.
It was in the cargo area, for God's sakes. You'd want to test that because maybe that right there would be the mix of the two people's bloods together that they are missing.
Not the killer's DNA alone, and
what if it's Steve's and Teresa's, right? So why wouldn't they test that?
Why? Everybody knows why, because they did not.
Because they knew that Steve's were never there to start with, and Probably because they knew Teresa's or Steve's, neither one were ever there to start with.
It's
They
also
poured it
curious.
in,
Also
poured it
curious
in out of a tube and a dropper.
why she labeled this one A13A, because it's just an odd lettering.
Yeah,
Kind of,
different from all the rest.
yeah, because the rest, item 14, A14, item
Yeah.
A23, you know.
Well,
This
the
is
reason
an
why
odd-
it's A, because it's discovered in the RAV, right? The RAV is item A1. And items associated with a RAV have the prefix A. So this is A23A. It's something that's derived from something that was found in the RAV.
It's their secret to say don't test because it's not.
So it's secondary. So it's A being the RAV, but it's a separate piece from the RAV, so it gets a designation of A.
Maybe, yeah.
That's the way I'm interpreting it. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm shocked by it. I didn't
she
even
does
know
enough fishy stuff.
I've listened quietly to all this, and you missed the one most important part that I like the best.
Let's hear it.
Lay it on us, Columbo.
There is no proof that was Teresa's day plan.
That's a good one.
What?
She's got it in the chart.
She's got it in the chart, yep.
They said that it was not proof, right? That's what you're saying.
That's right.
Yeah. To say, wait a minute, she has her customers written on there. Who else went to the Averys and the Schwookers or whatever they are, the Zippermans, whoever? Who else did that day? Nobody.
Well, it's got her hand. The thing is, it's got her handwriting on it, right? We have two affidavits, right? We have one from Heidel, right, where she talks to Heidel, I think, at like 11:30. Yeah. Okay. So she's got one from Heidel, which is the call that she makes at 11:30, which honestly, in my opinion, she does have time to get home from. So that one is not really the best one she has. But she's got another one from Schmitz that says that when she talked to Schmitz, she pulled over and to make a note because she was on her way to. Everybody's named Steven, so I'm getting confused. So it's the call that it's the one that she canceled, the one that she so-called never showed up to. At the end of the day that she called, and she was on her way to the one in New Holstein, which is that Schmitz? Help me out, Jack. Yeah. So who the Steve from Sheboygan, whose name who I can't remember, is the one that she has the affidavit from. That they talk about the fact that she's not going to be able to to get there right away, and he wanted to talk in the afternoon, and they're going to have to move his appointment. She has a note about that on the day planner as well. So, and that is very, very, very tight. If she actually drove home from that after making that particular phone call, then there's just no way. Very, very tight that she could have made it home after making that call to drop that piece of paper off, based on where she pinged, and how long it would have taken to get to the tower that she pinged off next. Just very, very tight. And Zelda says there's not enough time, and she's right.
Well,
so go ahead.
I was just going to say, just the fact that Pratt says she never left the Avery salvage yard, and they've already proved that she has, is enough for me to, it doesn't make any sense at all. It doesn't. That has to be her day planner. I mean,
well, here's the only thing I can say about the day planner. Unless you physically see it, because if they make a copy of it or anything else and you see a copy of it or whatever, you're not going to be able to tell that it had her actual handwriting on it, because then it would be a copy and it would be printed then. You know what I mean? So you'd have to see the actual piece of paper that Ryan had and see if it had the handwritten notes on it, or if it was printed off with the handwritten notes on it, which would mean that she had went somewhere and faxed it into them. And then he was somehow recovering that fax or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah. But there would be something.
If any of that made any sense, I don't know.
There would be something on that piece of paper that said that it was faxed and where it was faxed from.
Yes, that's right. That's right. I agree with you, Lois. It's extremely fishy that the state would even suggest that is not her planner. I think they also suggested that it's not clear that it was Ryan who was the one that Zella didn't prove that it was Ryan who was the one that actually submitted it. But Zella doesn't address that.
He gave it to somebody else to submit for him.
Okay,
That is true.
For 4 years or 5 years or whatever long we've been doing this stuff, and none of us knew that to look at other people for a day planner. I wonder why we put it on Ryan. Let me see, what would be the clue? Oh my God, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly.
Who was
exactly.
it that said that was it Kelly that said that she saw Ryan with it? I know we got it from someone. Someone
Kelly
said
Piston? Kelly Pitson?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well-
Somebody said they thought that Ryan turned it in.
And it wouldn't happen to be because normally in an investigation of a young girl's death and dismemberment, wouldn't he normally be the number one person who would be being looked at and instantly be the top of the suspect pool just because he's her ex and
Yeah.
he's still hanging around and he's still inserting himself into the case over
Yeah.
and over again, repeatedly all over the place? He's inserting himself into the case.
Well,
Wouldn't that
none of
send
that
off
really
red
matters.
flags to the cops and had them put him? Shouldn't he have been like number one suspect, not Steve?
No, I agree with you.
Yeah.
And the roommate too. And the fact that the prosecutor and attorney, Kratz, and please don't butt in until I'm done, Kratz, you gave them both alibis. Bad move.
Yep.
I love hearing my name. Thanks.
None of that really does matter. Regardless of how you look at it now, it is stated that Ryan had the day planner in his possession, and Kratz did not object to that. That makes it so.
Well, he didn't challenge it. I guess it does.
He broke up a little bit for me. Did everybody else hear his question clearly?
Repeat it, Mose.
It really doesn't matter. Now, the point is that it was said in court that Ryan had the day planner. The fact that Ken Kratz did not dispute that makes it so.
That's an interesting point. And we'll hear that when we read.
Right on.
The trial, right?
I can't remember the exact context and how that came into court. I know it's obviously it's brought in, but I don't remember the context. But we'll find out.
Well, okay, if that's the way it wants to be viewed, I'll accept that. But I watched him on Dr. Phil on national TV say that Ryan printed it off a computer. It wasn't the actual day planner page, that he printed it off a computer.
Yeah,
Therefore,
see,
Ryan had it.
that's the point I was trying to make when I got kind of combobulated there earlier, was that if it had been faxed in or something, he would have to print it off and it wouldn't have the handwritten note.
Every
Yeah,
fax I ever made or got had a little number on the top of it for where it came from.
Yeah.
At best, she'd have had to made it home and scan it in, right? On a scanner.
Unless she was able to take, unless it was on her PDA, and she was able to make sort of, with a stylus, make notes on top of it like that. Yeah, that's what I say about that too. But at the end of the day, if it was something that was printed out, somehow it gets on there. How are that? I don't know that anybody has seen anything but the copy of it that we're shown in the trial.
And once it's a copy, then it's all computerized anyway. Yeah.
Where's the
you'd
original?
have to at best have a really clear picture of the original, or actually have the original in your hand to be able to
color
tell.
picture A color picture anyway. What color pen was she using?
Yeah, if it was handwritten in it.
Yep, I agree. I mean, there's fishiness there, Mose. I don't think anybody's trying to say that
That
there
was
isn't.
the point I was trying to make earlier when it kind of got combobulated on me.
Yeah, I don't know how her handwriting ended up on that. And if it was fax, that where did she have time to stop at a fax machine? She didn't make any. The fax that she sent to Auto Trader, to your point, Lois, what was made like really early in the morning, something like midnight the night before or something like that.
Or a minute after midnight or something, or a minute before.
But 12 to 13 hours before she was on the road to her appointments. And we have the affidavits
that shows the time that it was received, the time that it was sent, and where it was sent from.
Yeah, but there's no way she could have. I mean, even if it did have that, we know when these notes were taken because we have the affidavits of the people that she talked to. That she was in the car on Monday the 31st when she wrote down that information from Heidel. So even if you think it was a fax and somehow that's got omitted from the trial, there's no way it could be that because there's no way that information could have been written in that time frame in order to send that fax at midnight the day before, right?
It was after the fact. Yeah.
Way out.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm agreeing with you. Maybe violently, but I'm agreeing.
Don't a fax normally have 2 pages, the cover page and then the actual page?
And you can if you want. You don't have to send the cover page, but some people do.
Well, I know if I fax, I go to the place like Kinko's or whatever. I fax from there because I don't have them. Yeah, and there you always had to have a cover letter.
And so I don't recall her having a scanner either. I guess you can use a fax machine.
I don't know that I've ever heard anything, but most people did. Even then, in 05, most people at least had a little flatbed scanner.
The newer pieces of equipment, they're kind of all in one deal. But back then, really not so much.
Back then, I had a little flatbed scanner. It's a little. It was only like 2 or 3 inches tall, and it was, of course, a big sheet of glass under a lid.
I had a big one from HP, and it looked like a freaking flatbed chest.
Mine was really small. Mine was only it only stood like 2 or 3 inches.
Yeah, I mean, if she actually did scan this in, and that's how it ended up in her computer, Ryan must have been very familiar with her filing system because, it's just to me unbelievable that the timeline is so tight from the time that she makes that call to Stephen Sheboygan to the time that she pings off that tower in Whitelaw for the first time on the way there, that it's just hard for me to believe that she had time to make it back to her house, fire up her computer, fire up her scanner, plop the thing in, wait for the thing to finish. And where's the original too? If you scanned it in, where's the original? Maybe that, I just, it's just not believable to me.
Yeah.
Anyway, I agree with Mose that it wasn't a fax and that it's fishy, and the state saying that it wasn't hers is that's going to be problematic for them moving on. Got any other bombshells for us, Mose?
No, not at the moment.
All right, you can.
I only got one brain cell and I used it up.
You had to dispense of your parents' names too to use your brain cell on that, didn't you? That was very big of you.
Hey, Dark Side of the Moon has been here and hasn't said anything.
Come on, Dark Side, give us one. Drop us. What was your favorite part of the brief?
Come on, sweetie.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Susan.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Dark Side. Item BZ. Where was that found? Was that not found in the quarry? With the bone with the tissue on it?
Oh, the alien bone. Found at Michael's quarry.
So
that's what I thought too. Somebody told me
reply.
I don't know.
In the state's
Michael's
reply,
quarry.
In the state's reply, they say it was found in the Avery burn pit.
No, it was found in the Michael's.
Says the
material
state
quarry.
also preserved crime lab item BZ, the thigh bone fragment collected from the Avery burn pit with attached human tissue. They say they still have it.
Yeah, yep.
I'm
wondering
pretty
if that's
sure that
from-
was found in the quarry.
Yeah,
That's what I
Michael's
thought, too.
material quarry.
Yep.
That's what I thought, too.
Material quarry.
I don't know how we get to
Oh,
the ground truth on that, Jax. Is should that be in the evidence ledger?
Yep, I'm looking.
Can you guys hear me?
I'm fixing to look right now. Yeah, I can hear
Yes.
you, BB.
Hey, one more question that I have never heard an answer to. Stephen admits that he touched the top of the vehicle when Teresa was there. If that is Teresa's RAV, why did they not get his handprint off the top of the car?
Good point.
Good question.
Well, I think they know there's a palm print because they take even Mama Avery's palm print, I think. They take like people's palm prints.
They just did that to make it look
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, but they never said he had that on his, they never said, well, we found his handprint on the RAV. They said there was no fingerprints from him.
That would have been the very first thing they would have put out there before he ever had got anywhere near a courtroom. As soon as they heard him say that he touched the top of that car, they would have had his fingerprints off of that car. That puts him at that car.
And I don't think you guys could hear me earlier, but that little piece of meat and the bone came from Michael's material quarry.
Right.
That's where the pressure is.
But then again, you guys were talking from a really do an investigation, right? I mean, we're thinking of a real investigation, so it does not apply in this case.
I'm thoroughly convinced there was a real investigation. They would have not put all these lies out there unless they knew what happened.
Yeah, so the real investigation is buried, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you said that the other day, I thought about that, and it really makes a lot of sense. It really did. That they did a proper investigation, but they just chose to bury the truth. And because they knew the truth, they could put up these lies and things. Yes, I agree.
Well, I mean, you would not tell your mom that you saw your sister down at the store buying chocolate candy bars that she's not allowed to have unless you knew for a fact where she was, because you might be telling your mom she was buying candy bars when she was actually getting her hair done with your mom.
Right.
You wouldn't risk that.
That's right.
Not with all, you just wouldn't. That's bullshit.
You're right. They had to cover. They did. Just like with the dogs, I believe they had to do that too. That's why they had them go through so many times and stopped them. Because I agree.
Yeah. So I mean,
they weren't done staging stuff yet, so they had to stop the dogs and redo it.
Oh, that's right.
They were
Good
staged
point.
once.
Good point.
Yeah.
Staging, that was written down.
Restaging. Yeah.
Yep. Good point, BB.
Yeah, when you think about it, the crux of the hub of that investigation was the crime lab, that RV crime lab that they had set up there, right? And the people who controlled, what evidence came in and what was logged and what was even used, that could all have been done after the fact. There didn't need to be that many people in on the fix, right? Just the people who were focused on that, the Wegerts and the Fassbenders.
5.
I agree.
I think it took 5.
I think they contaminated the whole crime scene, considering the whole yard was a crime scene, according to them. So
I would say between a half a dozen and a dozen, they could get by with that few of knowing or knowing portions.
I think it took like 5 to actually do it, but I think there was a whole bunch more than that knew what was going on.
According to the ledgers, Wisconsin Crime Lab ledgers, item BB is one sealed paper bag containing Adam's description as a shovel found in a near red trailer garage.
BZ, not BD.
Oh, B. Oh.
BZ.
Oh, I thought you said BB.
BZ is the ilium bone, I'm pretty sure.
BZ, one sealed paper bag containing items described as unidentified charred material.
I thought at some point somebody identified some burnt stuff they had found as being insulation-y.
Well, that's pretty much it. I mean, there's other information that's off to the side, but
Oh, we might have to leave this exercise to the reader, which is okay. Suffice it to say that there is total fishiness surrounding that that piece of evidence, because it's just incomprehensible that this fire that was hot enough, to render bones into calcined fragments was not hot enough to burn this tiny piece of meat that was left on or muscle. Yeah. It's not believable.
And to top it off, her leg bones are really, really skinny. And we're not talking, this isn't like half of the length of your shin bone. This is like the size of your thumb, and if it's burned that much and to calcite, then how is there still meat off of her skinniness still on it?
It's been proven that you can't. It takes way too long in an open fire to burn a body. Okay, and there's no way that could have happened like that. And left some meat.
No, if it would have burned it hot enough to burn the bone down to calcite, there would be no meat.
That's right.
Looking at Teresa's kind of slight frame and her, I wouldn't say, what would you call it, petiteness, but that I've seen more meat on a boiling chicken, and there is no way that a girl the size of Teresa would ever have survived. I mean, there's no way any kind of flesh attached to a bone would have survived a fire that had been hot enough to have destroyed the rest of the body. There's no way.
Between the knee and the ankle is more than a foot. Between the knee and the ankle, you're talking like a foot-long bone that is burnt down to the size of like a thumb. Okay, it's not like it's half of that where it's like 6 inches of bone or something.
But a small amount, it would have been incinerated. There would be nothing left of it if the fire was that hot.
Exactly.
So for them to say
they can't have it both ways. Yeah.
They can't say, oh, well, we've found remains with kind of muscle material attached to the bone. That is absolute ridiculous. Either he had a fire that would kind of resemble a crematorium, or he didn't. You can't have it both ways.
Yeah,
exactly.
Open pit would not
I've been saying that for years. I call bullshit on it.
Go and build a bonfire in your back garden. Take a chicken and throw it on the bonfire. Come back in a couple of hours and see what's left of that chicken.
Well, also you can reference, other cases where there has been a body burned in an open pit, and it took way more than 8 hours. It probably took like 3 days to do what the closest case I've ever seen to Teresa.
Yeah. I mean, Go ahead, Liz.
The only part of Teresa that they were able to get a partial DNA profile from was found in the Michaels quarry. And now in their reply, they're saying it was found in the burn pit.
Yeah, and it had 1 of 2 of the mother's mitochondrial DNA markers. Only one. It only had half of what the mother's profile of mitochondrial DNA is. It only had half of that. It had 1 mitochondrial, but Teresa's mother is supposed to have some weird thing where she has 2 different markers.
Well, estoppel all that, I think.
Like, I have what I call bullshit on that piece of meat.
We can't get Dr. Silkman back fast enough.
Yeah.
like I said, you stop all that for real. That's all they're trying to change the story again right in the middle. You can't have it both ways. Like I said, a two-headed coin to a one-way street. That's what they're comparing this to.
Yeah.
I don't think you guys seem to get it here. They don't have two different stories. They have 3 or 4. It depends on what day you're talking to them.
Right. I'm just, giving them the benefit of the doubt.
Well, I just wanted to clear that up so that we wasn't behind on anything or surprised when you hear the next one.
Well, it's like I always am saying, there was 2 different murderers, but 1 victim and 2 different ways that person was dead. So let's get real here. That's what they claim too.
In 2 different locations.
Yeah.
The bedroom, the garage, cut on the neck, shot in the head, whatever suited him that day.
Just a whole bunch of things that just aren't right there.
I never did see anybody get cut on the neck that didn't bleed profusely.
Yeah.
I've never
Especially
seen a haircut cut either that didn't leave 1 hair somewhere.
Right.
Oh, hair goes everywhere, doesn't it? Goes everywhere.
Yeah. Clings to stuff, all kinds of stuff.
Most of the creases around forward, no.
Get stuck inside vents in cars.
Strand left in the ramp for sure.
Most of the major arteries from the heart travel up through the neck into the brain. Now, any kind of bladed injury to the throat would leave blood everywhere, and most wasn't kidding. It would bleed profusely. I mean, men cut themselves shaving and then spend half the morning trying to stem the flow. So, it's unrealistic to think that there was no sign of any blood anywhere in that bedroom,
yeah, and that's
anywhere
not really
in
a
the trailer, anywhere in the garage.
Even Darley Routier or whatever, where her throat was cut, except it didn't get the jugular, it bled profusely.
And regardless of the fact that they were supposed to have thrown the body onto the fire, I'm quite sure that there would have been some residual blood have seeped into the soil, which they may have been able to have recovered later. And there's no sign of that.
You bring up a good point.
There's
because when you burn a body in the soil, it leaves all your liquids in the dirt.
Yes, it does. Yes, it leaches. The body leaches all the fluids, and it will soak into the top soil, the top couple of inches of the earth, and that is going to hold a lot of DNA. Now, the very fact that they didn't have any kind of samples of DNA recovered from that earth, and don't forget they went in there with a construction machine to skim the earth. They had it there. Why didn't they find that DNA?
Yeah, they should have took
dirt and sifted it, and then they dumped it. They
should have been testing it.
I think they looked for it.
They must have had an examination table where they could have identified areas of Earth that may have held DNA material.
Well, they had a table set up in the crime lab.
Yeah, but what were they doing? Were they sifting through the Earth, or were they playing dominoes?
Is that when Fassbender and Wiegert were helping them shift through the bones?
When they were wearing them bunny suits at that table.
Yeah,
that was sorting the bones.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's when they were shaking out the material, the dirt to find bones. Right? And stuff, that's the cover story, right?
Yeah. Well, Wizard, you were talking about a normal investigation where they would test the.
Yeah, a normal. That's precisely, Linda, a normal investigation. But outside of the Avery family, there's absolutely nothing normal about any of this. Nothing.
You got it.
Nailed it.
She's perfectly right on schedule here. Let's just give it to her. Train of coming.
The only thing I'm interested in nailing at the moment would be Tom Kasurek to a brick wall.
He certainly is the start of all this at the end of the day, isn't he?
Without doubt. He's the absolute central character. The whole thing revolves around his decision to lock Avery up in 1985 for something that he knew Avery wasn't guilty of. All of this is to cover up his lies and to protect his pension and his good name. His name isn't worth shit.
That's right. I mean, you just can imagine how the power structure of the whole sheriff's office would have folded had it been found out. The illegal lengths that he went to not only arrest him but keep him in prison and hide the real evidence from coming out.
Well, that's just a county sheriff. But what really angers me is the fact that the apparatus of the state, the entire institution of Wisconsin, has rallied behind Kusurek and has decided that, well, okay, he was wrong and he'd done really bad things, but he's one of us and we're going to back him up anyway. So let's lock Avery up for another 30, 40 years, you know, or a life if we can, because that's the ideal here. And it's just, it angers me so much that there isn't anybody in Wisconsin with the bollocks to stand up and say this is wrong.
Yep, I agree with you.
Land of the free, home of the brave, my arse.
I seem to remember when we were doing your show, Linda, that we read in one of the depositions, and I can't remember whether it was Amy or Deb, where Kusurek went to Vogel and said, "Don't fuck this one up."
Yeah,
I do remember it.
Yeah, I do, but I don't remember. So, I think it's Amy. I want to put myself out there and say that, but I could be very wrong.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't remember which one either. But the point is that when you have the sheriff going to the DA and saying, "Don't fuck this one up," and that is really, that tells you who's running the show, doesn't it?
That's right.
Oh, yeah, just like put it in the garage or.
I mean, look. At the end of the day, the ADA or the district attorney for the county has to be the sheriff's boss at the end of the day. Now, whatever the structures are in relation to the sheriff's department and the justice department, the county's kind of prosecution section, whatever that relationship is, they're supposed to work in conjunction with each other. Now, when you get what you expect to see is the DA jumping down the back of the sheriff, breathing down his neck and pressuring him to come up with the evidence required to get a conviction. But if you end up with a sheriff going to the DA and saying, "Hey, look, this is one you cannot screw up," there's something wrong. There's something very wrong. It's the prosecutor's it's the prosecutor's job to decide who gets prosecuted and how, not the sheriff. It's not down to the sheriff to give instructions to a district attorney. I mean, that's how ridiculous can it get?
That is definitely, that there's some level of tampering going on there. That's not the way it's supposed to happen.
We used to call, well, it's collusion, it's corruption, it's collusion. They're all in league with each other. It's a boys' club. It's a boys' club.
It's about to blow up.
Yeah. What a great discussion, you guys.
You got another one for us, Mose? I see your.
You can smell the smoke.
I thought you were either electing a new pope or you had another thing to bring up. One or the other.
I'm good at the minute, but that won't last long, I'm sure.
You're really funny, Big Jeff. You are funny. I gotta give it to you. You just got those punchlines.
And the new pope is Kenneth R. III.
Interesting.
Wait a minute. He was picking on me, and if I'm not going to bash him that hard, don't you do it.
What do you got, Jack?
So it'll be interesting when we get it, dead into the case readings and start going through this trial testimony. And we're going to attempt, at least in some part, if not in whole, to do a multi-person reading. So one person will be the the lawyer like Susan will be, "Hey, Judge, this is Kratz.
Well,
How are you?"
I'm not too clever with the mimicking, but I'm up for that. I'm happy to play a role there.
And you're right.
I can play the villain. I'm good at that.
We called Conzo on to being the judge, Judge Wells.
Sherry.
Oh, no. In that, I've been in front of him before. In that case, you can find someone else to play the perpetrator. He's a hanging judge.
Well, we're going to try to make it a little more entertaining, and not go too far because the logistics of it will be difficult anyway. So I think it'll be interesting though once we get into these case readings and see what else that we've read that we didn't really get, and it has a different meaning now than it did then.
I think so. It's been a long time since I've never read the trial testimony end to end. I've read selected portions of it, like Pam of God, like the areas where various cell phone issues come up, which is what you expect out of me. But I have not done the whole thing end to end, and just when they do establish foundation for certain things, there's just a lot of stuff that comes out.
I did read it. I've read it twice, pretty much all the way through, and it's even the second time I read it, there were things that I missed. I mean, nothing significant, I guess jumped out, but I mean, not significant enough that I made a big deal out of it. Probably the one of the things that really jumped out for me was the tire cover and the spare tire cover and Uyghur's handling of it, but that came out of queso. And really not too much of a mention of it at trial, because I've tried to go back and look and try to find out, well, what did this son of a bitch do with this tire cover? Couldn't find anything. Nothing. Yeah, nothing.
Well, what's the reason that I love the pretrial testimony? Ryan Hillius drops a couple of bombs in that pretrial testimony. So he actually corrects Buding or Strang, or maybe even Fallon, when he asks him, Ryan talks about he's the one that went to the Yes Foundation and picked up those posters, right? He admits that, and he actually corrects the attorney who asked him the question that says, "No, I went and got him on Friday." Do you recall that? Friday. That's November 4th.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Okay. Well, some people there's a dispatch call where somebody one of the officers when they find out that Carmen Botwell died, right, calls in. Millbilly can tell you which officer it is. Said, "Oh yeah, we got a 25-year-old girl that died. That's not this Carmen Botwell by any chance, is it? Or it's not Teresa Hallback?"
Wasn't it?
Right?
I remember
that was Andy.
Okay.
That was Andy calling in, wasn't it?
No,
I don't remember who. I don't remember who it is.
I have that somewhere that who made that call. Let me go find it.
I believe that was called. Go ahead.
Okay, but whoever it is, that calls on November 3rd. Okay.
Wow.
And he says, "I just saw a picture. Maybe that I just saw a picture on the Cenex gas station. Is it this? If he didn't pick up those things till the 4th, how did he see that friggin' picture? Who put that picture up? And what were they doing there?"
Yeah.
Well, I think it's known that there are at least 2 different versions of that missing person report.
Right, so it makes you wonder if there wasn't 2 parallel investigations going on.
Well, has some the Yes Foundation printed some, and then whoever else printed more.
Who?
I think there was more going on.
And let's not get started on the fact that the sign was supposedly started on the 2nd.
Yep, that's right.
Oh yeah, it was. Those were definitely created on the 2nd, and that macro is that.
Yep, it's time stamped. Yep.
So then, where's that information coming from? If they've got that on the Wednesday, what else do they know that we're not being informed about?
That's right.
It's supposed to be an open, transparent investigation in full view of the public, so that the public can see that justice is being done. Now, how can anybody in Wisconsin believe that there was anything legitimate about an investigation where secrets are coming to light 15 years later, and yet the state still stand behind cracks.
It's kind of like an off-Broadway play where all the players miss their mark just a little teeny bit.
A little, yeah.
Yeah.
Then
Over
again,
and over again throughout the whole thing.
If you miss your mark by a little bit on a snooker table, you're a couple of inches out. If you miss your mark on a golf course by a little bit, you're half a mile away.
Horseshoes and hand grenades. Horseshoes and hand grenades.
If this moves forward into an evidentiary hearing, who do you all think is going to get thrown under the bus? It's not going to be Josh. It's not going to be Lisa.
Crats.
It's crats.
That's why.
And the state. We all need to remember the state have already thrown him under the bus.
I know that you want to say that, and that is, I get that. That is a question. But there's not one specific answer to that question, because the people that are going to be thrown under the bus is going to be at different levels. You're going to have the police department.
I was just going to say that shit's going to roll downhill, and it's going to start with Kraft. I think it's going to go to Colburn.
Okay,
yeah, Colburn's definitely getting thrown under the bus.
Gotta say this. Prosecuting attorney is the one that is responsible for saying, yes, we take this to court, no, we don't. So yes, Kraft will be thrown under the bus for sure.
And also anybody who is dead at that time, they will also be thrown under the bus.
Well, what about our two leads, our two lead investigators? And we can say whatever we want. They're police officers or whatever, state agents.
Yeah, I'm sure someone will declare that they were working in the best interests of justice, that they had no intention of causing any harm. There was no one really did anything wrong.
But isn't that they were more on Brendan's case than they were.
Yeah.
So I would think it was Brendan. If you ask me, Stephen's case, they're going to put it all on Kratz. Every bit of it. I bet you they do. I mean, the dead people.
Well, Kratz might as well be dead, really.
Fallon, and Kratz has that.
And Fallon, yep.
Kratz has that immunity where he can't be.
Kratz will probably be wishing he was dead.
That's unless he goes outside. True.
Prosecutorial immunity or whatever.
Civil suit.
Prosecutorial.
Yeah, there's a total immunity that there is, but there are limits to that totality.
Right. He does not have immunity that will cover him for the immoral and unethical things that he did, such as sending that.
Well, according to Zellner's expert on that, every single step he did, the beginning, the end, the middle, every piece he did was improper. The guy shredded him.
I vote we should do a podcast on immunity and look it up and really see what it's about and spell it out.
Sounds like a project, yeah.
Guys,
If you want to do that, go look at the two videos that Paul Capaldi put out. That will.
Well, if we're going to do that, I'd rather not look at his, because then I might tend to borrow from his.
Yeah, I think.
Guys, may I correct something regarding the item BZ?
Please.
Of course.
It's a thigh bone fragment collected from the Avery burn pit with attached human tissue.
Thank you, Zoe.
Thigh. Okay, so I had the wrong part of the leg. I thought it was the lower part. It's the upper part. Still, on her, that's so skinny.
I thought they found that in the quarry.
I did.
It was found in Michael's quarry. It was Michael's Material Quarry was the name of the quarry where that one was found.
Zoe just said it was in the burn pit.
It was
Avery's
burn
pit. You guys remember?
Was Avery's burn pit.
There's There's a document somewhere that says it came from Michael's material, Corey.
Yeah, I could swear there's paperwork somewhere that says
I
that.
am sure that I know there is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've seen that. And again, I could be wrong. Could be wrong.
Sometimes it's feathers, BB. You got to be careful of the feather.
Yeah, well, yeah, it could be feathers in my brain, but I'm pretty sure I've seen the paperwork on that before. I think
I'd
I
have to-
actually handled it somewhere.
I
Maybe
think
on
I'd
a
have,
PowerPoint.
I would have to be on your side, BB. I think I've seen that before too.
Yeah.
That's my recollection as well. I even said that on a podcast a while ago too. So if that's wrong, we do need to correct it. If we can find
Because
that
that's where
document, that'd
that
be great.
new name comes in, that Michael's material quarry. And we're all like, wait, what? Yeah.
Zoe, are you looking on the evidence list or?
It was a state's reply, and it was also mentioned in 2017 Kathleen's motion something.
Thank you.
Well, if it's in their motion, we can just say that's prosecutionally barred.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure probably if you searched under some documents, whatever searchable documents with the Michael's material quarry, you'd find it.
I thought I seen it in an evidence paper log, so I'm gonna have to check that out to make sure. Because
it seems like it was somewhere where there might be maybe GPS locations of the bones or so. I don't know. It was back in that time frame somehow.
it's for further discussion until we get it
Yeah,
right.
all right. So guys, I'm getting a little sensitive to the time here. Why don't we think about closing it down and go around everybody for their final comments. I'm sure that there's going to be more podcasts on this topic, and I look forward to the discussion. Allie, do you have any closing comments? I'm going to take that as a no. BB?
No, I'm good.
Columbo?
I'm good.
Dark Side, you're letting us down by not saying anything in the whole talk.
Come on, Dark Side, say something.
Man.
No.
All right, Jack?
I'll keep it brief. You know Joe Exotic, he'll beat your ass anyway. IMFL. OECD.
Yep.
Dassey Burn Barrel.
Brady violations are the fastest way to a new trial.
Thank you. I think that Kathleen, somebody, I think it was Susan, or actually several people have said it, that the way she laid this, her reply out is clean, it's to the point, and not any fluff at all. And she really schooled the hell out of him. So embarrassingly bad. That's it. And thank you for doing this.
No problem, Jack.
Outstanding.
Linda. Oh. Thank you, Jack. Linda?
I could just say thank you, everybody. This has been a fantastic conversation. I have enjoyed everybody's thoughts, and I think KZ kicks ass.
I don't think you're going to find much of an argument here. Rhonda, you have a comment for us?
I'm just anxious and excited for what's coming next. I don't know if it's been discussed, but I don't know how long, like a time limit for a response, but it's like waiting on pins and needles even more so than in the past with other responses. So I'm super excited to hear what's going to happen.
Yeah, just I'm not sure where Travis's next stop is going to be. He did make a comment. He did, when I did my best shot at a reading with Bill Billy on Thursday night, Travis did join us, and he took a look at some other cases that he felt were similar, and he said that those cases were responded to by the three-judge panel in 2 to 3 weeks. I'm sorry, 2 to 3 months. Excuse me, geez, weeks. I'm going to get flamed by that.
You got me all excited.
Yeah, so that wouldn't be so bad. That's actually not the 20-month Judge Duffin. So that might not be so bad.
Yep, I can handle that long. I can get through the summer.
Yeah, I'd look for Travis. I'm hoping that Travis and Fenn and Tracy will. I know Tracy's taking a little bit of a break, but even just Fen and Travis would be a great, it's to focus on this now that he's had some time to digest it. I look forward to finding out where he's going to be next, because I want to know the same answer.
Thanks, Jeff. I appreciate everything everything you've done. So this has been a really great podcast. Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
One more quick comment, Big Jeff, and I don't know if it'd be worth it or if anybody's done it, but Casey's original brief from October 2019.
Yep.
That wouldn't be a bad thing to go through again, because she, I don't know how many people here have read it. It's in the same light of what this reply here is. It's clean. It has everything in it. If you want to know the case, read that.
It was so easy to read for me.
It was.
I like that idea. That sounds like a really good idea.
Anyway, thank you.
Okay, Jeff.
Along those same lines, Travis, I recall going through that brief. I think Travis, with Travis as well, was fortunate to have him there. And I think what he said is what would be very interesting for him to have is some of the exhibits or attachments, I guess, what you might call. He said there's a lot of them. I don't know if we can dedicate. We need to get them by FOIA. I don't think it'll be challenged, but we need to know which ones they are. And he said there's a lot of them. There's pages and pages of boxes. So I wish he could be a little bit more explicit about which ones he wanted.
There's a table. It's been mentioned before. There's a table of contents that has just. That's not a bad idea. Probably should look at that, because there's always itching to FOIA something.
Yeah.
I'm not sure to FOIA that much, but if we could be very selective, and it wouldn't be prohibitively expensive for, if we all wanted to pass the hat around.
I'd gladly contribute, especially if somebody like Travis or Tracy would say this is the prioritize the most meaningful ones first, right?
Let's try to find out. Yeah, absolutely.
I want a FOIA so I can tell Henbury I got what it takes.
Well, when we're talking about expenses for FOIAs and stuff like that, you guys can always just count me in, because I'm happy to help too.
Oh yeah.
And we got that whole couple of bucks we made off of commercialization now too.
That's great. That's great. I'm glad to hear that.
And you left off at Susan. Yeah.
Susan, thank you.
Yeah, same as Rhonda. I just can't wait to hear the judge's reply on this. It seems to me that there's just no way she won't get an evidentiary hearing, at least out of this. And if she doesn't, and if they do like they've done in the past, then we just know that the entire system is
corrupt.
Corrupt. Thank you.
Yeah.
Fucked up. I gotta drop my F-bomb once during this podcast.
Remember that her lowest bar is, sort of they should be allowed to continue the scientific testing. So even, let's, minimally hope for that. I hope for the evidentiary hearing, but scientific testing, boy, I can't wait till she gets her hands on the RAV. And if it's Onsky, then boy, oh boy.
Well,
another comment, Linda?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I would love her to get extra testing, because that would just further her, her, what I don't even can't think of the word, but it would cement more of it not being Stephen and not just not them. I think
it would certainly reinforce her armory. It would give her another tool to kind of get in there and whack them over the head with.
Exactly, reinforce.
Yeah, if the circuit court, if the appeals court is at all interested in fundamental fairness, they should at least put it back to where it was when they had the agreement with Fallon and Williams, right? So.
Well, no, because Williams wasn't there. Williams only came on the scene after Fallon's departure.
I thought Williams was the one that butt-dialed Zellner.
Yes, it would have been Fallon and Garn, understand, because Garn was brought out of retirement to deal with it as well, wasn't he?
Yeah.
The appeal.
Okay, but at the time of the scientific testing agreement, thank you for that clarification. Yeah, awesome. Okay, your turn. Hey, Susan, did you have any more? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Well, if I could just say something.
Oh, please do, prosecutor.
By the way, I am not under a rock. I am in a cave in an undisclosed location, by the way. But I just want to tell all you super sleuther nut jobs that the state of Wisconsin is going to back up my conviction because it was a good conviction and I'm very proud of it. Thank you so much.
They'll back up his conviction when the jury find him guilty.
Well, you get
You'll
the
never
chance to
find me.
You get your chance now, Wizard, to counteract the prosecutor.
Okay, well, my thoughts at the moment are it's been a fantastic conversation. And I think at the moment, the only thing I can say is that I look forward with hopeful anticipation for a positive result in the next few months. I'm going to remain hopeful and believe that something good's going to happen with regards to Stephen's kind of claims. And let's hope it's the start of the beginning of the end.
Thank you very much. And that's an awesome sentiment to be left with. Anything else?
No, that'll do me. That's my lot. Thank you.
That's a
Makes
great sentiment. Yep. Zoe, how about you?
This has been fun today. It's a long time since we had the Thirsty for Theory Thursday. But is it 2 to 3 months yet? No.
What is it that you
no,
always say,
It's
Zoe? Sleep faster.
Yeah, sleep faster. Think faster.
We have to wait. We have to wait. Hopefully, it'll be a positive result. That's where we're looking for.
Oh, yes.
Whoop. Sammy. Oh, Zoe, was that all? I'm sorry.
Yes, that was all. Thank you.
Excellent. Sammy, do you have anything else?
I just want to say thank you, Jeff. I'm so glad you did this, and I found the conversation very, very stimulating, and I'm looking forward to more of them. So thank you.
I hope you're feeling better too.
Thank you.
All right, so that about wraps it up, and just we continue to hope for Stephen and Brendan. And this was certainly a shot across the bow by Kathleen Zellner. Like I said, this is my house, bitches. That's what Kathleen told them, and it seems to me like she took them to school, and I look forward to hearing what the state says back, like everybody else. Thank you all for the conversation and taking all the time. This was not a short podcast, but it just shows how fired up we are about it and how excited we are to hear what Kathleen had to say and how much we continue to maintain Stephen and Brendan's innocence and how we all have hope for his eventual exoneration. And with that, this has been a Foul Play production.